Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a quick fire Q&A because you guys have sent in loads of questions and I really want to get through all of them. So let's go. So the first question is from existentialism. I don't know how to say that. And they've asked, when you reach the point where you think, actually I'm quite good now, I should possibly sell my art, how do you get your foot in the door? Shows, local galleries, sending photos of your art further afield. Basically, what's the next step from producing something to sell? This is like one of the most commonly asked questions and it's a really good one as well. Rather than going with maybe like 2 or 3 ones that all are very different, try and have a similar theme amongst your paintings. Then that becomes your brand. I think the people that are most successful are the ones that just don't give up, because a lot of people think that opportunities just come to successful people. That couldn't be further from the truth. Usually successful people are the ones that just keep on trying again and again and again, and if you have to go through 50 different galleries and go and see them and ask them about your work and ask them if they'd like to have some of your work, then you just got to keep knocking. So if you're interested in local galleries, just either hit them an email and say, hey guys, I'd love to come and see you to show you some of my artwork. Is there a time when it's convenient for you? And you can just pop in, take a few of your artworks, just make sure you're really friendly, and if they like you as a person, they'll be much more inclined to take on your artwork, depending on what kind of gallery it is. If it's a very commercial gallery, then they may have an application process. Be open to different opportunities and just keep on trying, and just don't give up. That is the main thing with selling artwork, is don't give up. There'll be tons of different hurdles and things that will try and trip you up, but you just gotta get up again and carry on trying. The Amateur Artist 94 asks, I'd like to know how many paintings you do in a month on average. It's difficult because sometimes a painting could sit there for 6 months until I finish it. I have lots and lots of paintings all on at one time. I mean, around me now, I have 16 different paintings in the works that have all been started like within the last month. So I would probably say maybe 10 finished paintings a month, which includes like watercolors and smaller paintings as well. So I'd say about 10 a month. What is the one thing that keeps you inspired? P.S. I love you. I love you too. What is the one thing that keeps me inspired? Probably the process of creating. So with me feeling inspired, it's not necessarily what I want the end result to look like. It's more of the feeling of painting and the feeling of mixing colours and putting them on a canvas. That's what really sort of like ignites me inside, rather than working really hard on one piece and then being like happy when it's done. You know, every moment of the process makes me happy. So I guess that is what keeps me painting and keeps me painting regularly. What books do you recommend? The book that I would recommend the most is Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. It's fantastic for learning how to draw properly. I need to read it again and practice more. It's just got a really fantastic way of helping you understand exactly what the drawing process is and really understanding what has to happen to make a good drawing. So that would be the #1 book I would recommend if you were going to buy one. Do you make most of your tutorials with acrylics because it's easier or because acrylics are your favourite medium? I think it's easier in terms of it's more accessible to people rather than oil paint, because people tend to get a bit fearful of oil paint, and also with turpentine smells, and you know, not everybody has a studio where they can go to. A lot of people paint on the dining room table. I still do now, so for that reason I feel like acrylics is more accessible to people, and also the drying stages is quicker, so I can sit there and film a painting in a whole day, rather with oil paints it would take me a week to film a video. So for that reason it's a lot easier to do tutorials in acrylic paint. What is your advice for a beginner artist? In some ways I still feel like I'm a beginner artist, but my #1 piece of advice would be to practice, practice, practice. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, and most of all enjoy it, because if you enjoy it then that will make sure that you keep on practicing it. Also, don't worry about painting too much for now. If you feel like your paintings aren't working out the way you want, then I would suggest to focus on drawing for a bit, because you can't really do a painting that you have imagined unless you can do the drawing you've imagined. So definitely focus on drawing first, and then once that's nailed or you're happy with it, then focus on painting more. Could you tell us about how you select the colour scheme for your paintings? My colour schemes are usually based on something that I've seen that I just can't stop looking at because the colours work so beautifully together. So it might be a page in a magazine, it might be a bit of nature, it could be anything. A lot of my inspiration comes from like catwalks and the outfits that they're wearing and the colours that they're wearing together. Yeah, just really from anywhere, especially sort of design blogs. Rugs are another fantastic source of colour inspiration. Really surrounded by colour when we open up our eyes to what's around us, and it's amazing how you can find inspiration in places that you would never think. How has your style changed and how do you suggest developing a style? I feel like my style becomes more defined with every series of paintings that I do. I would definitely suggest not to force a style. So sometimes you might think, I really love that kind of art, so that's the art I'm going to make. And then you make it, and you might not feel fulfilled by that style of art, so then you might be searching for something else. So I'd say be open to everything, try a bit of everything, and see which ones you naturally gravitate towards and which ones that you enjoy the most. And then the more and more paintings that you do, it will fine-tune it down till you find the thing that you really, really love. And I remember feeling really frustrated as well when I didn't feel like I had a style, and I remember sitting googling all the time how to find style, what do I have to do to find style. And looking back now, I realise that it has to happen very organically, and it's something that just can't be forced, and it has to have patience, years of patience. So I know how frustrating that can feel because I've been there and I've felt frustrated with it. And I think sometimes when you are so focused on finding a style, it almost inhibits you to do that, you know? It's like almost being worried about being worried. So then you're worried because you're worrying about being worried. If you just relax and think there's nothing to worry about, then you calm, you know? I don't know if that's a very good example. But what is your favourite thing to paint? Oh, everything I've ever painted is because it's been my favourite thing at that time. So abstracts, flowers, the ocean, anything you see as part of my art, I've painted it because at that time it was my favourite thing. And I guess I don't really have a favourite thing because it's constantly changing and I'm constantly searching for new things. This is a really, really good question. It says, do you think having a non-art job and doing art as a hobby is effective, and will my art still improve? I really enjoy doing art, but I don't know which way I should take. I think this is a fantastic question because actually my answer will probably surprise you. So a lot of people would think, oh, if you're doing art as a job, you'll improve quicker because you're focusing on it and you're doing it all day. And in a way, I actually feel the opposite. If you're just practicing art just for you, and there's no pressure to make money and to survive off it and to pay your bills, I think in a way your art will probably maybe improve in a better sense, because instead of pushing it so much into a direction, it will sort of naturally go into the direction that it's supposed to do anyway. Sometimes when we force things, it actually stops the things from happening that should. I don't know if that makes sense. Your work will be very honest because it will be exactly what you want to make. Say I have two paintings, one's a floral, one's an ocean, and then someone goes, oh, I want the ocean painting, I wanna buy that, and it's sold and it sells really fast, and then the floral one sits there for a year not being sold. It's really difficult not to get into the mind frame of, oh, I should be painting oceans, and instead painting what you want to paint. And I definitely think that your style can develop better if you're not trying to make art your career. So I hope that answers that question. Do you prefer watercolor or acrylic? Acrylic. What color do you like the most while painting? Probably red, like a really, really rich red. Do you have any bad experience with teachers that criticised your work? I haven't been to art school, so I've never experienced teachers criticising my work, but I sure have had gallery owners criticising it, just strangers just feeling the need to put their opinion on my artwork. I think it's definitely something that's very difficult to deal with, but at the end of the day, everybody has different opinions, but I do think that you should have confidence in yourself. Just because they're a teacher doesn't necessarily mean that they should decide which way you should go, because they're just another human being just like you are. So you should never fulfill somebody else's idea. You should fulfill what your brain wants you to do. I like this question. How do you keep all of your work, finance and regular life organised? The answer to that is I don't. I am the most organised person in the world. I think the number one tip to keeping your life organised is to get up early. I find that my days are so much more rewarding and rich and calm when I get up early. I get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock. I know to some people that's like not early, but when you don't have a boss and you don't have someone going, get to work by this time, and your workspace is next door to where you sleep, it's very difficult not to get into the mind frame of I have to get up on time, you know. But actually I think it's really important because I get up. Obviously I'm married, I've been married 7 years, so we live in a house, the housework that needs to be done, like cooking needs to be done. So yeah, I definitely think getting up early and sorting everything out and then you can still get to work by 9 o'clock is a really good structure that's worked for me, but probably different things work for different people as well. How much time do you spend on average working in a week? I'd say I'd probably work full time. I mean, the other night I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and was editing a video, and then I didn't stop working till really late at night, and then other days I'll have the whole afternoon off or morning off, so it kind of balances out. I mean, today's Saturday, so technically this is working and I'm working on Saturday. It's very difficult to put an hour restraint on it, but I would probably say that it works out about a full-time work schedule. What were the struggles you encountered when you were just starting to paint? I think that's such a good question. Oh, so many struggles. Struggles of not having enough art supplies or not really having the art supplies I wanted. Not feeling like I had the ability to do what I want and be who I want. Having too many ideas and not knowing which direction to go in. And always just striving to want a better workspace, which thankfully now I'm so happy with it. It's taken 4 or 5 years to be happy with it and to save up money to do it, but I'm really happy with this workspace now. So yeah, they're just a few of the struggles. So if any of you are feeling that right now, I've been there and I know how it feels and it sucks. How can I avoid glare when photographing oil paintings? I think that's a really fantastic question. So I usually take my paintings outside on a cloudy but bright day and face them away from the sun, because if you face them opposite a sun or a light source, you're going to get the glare. That's why I take it outside, because the light sort of comes from all around, whereas if you do it inside, you usually get the light from one defined space, which obviously will reflect. Yeah, so I would experiment as well, because it really depends what kind of finish you have on your paintings, whereabouts you live and what the weather's like there. But just experiment with different ways before you sit down and photograph 100 different paintings. Can you list all the avenues that you make money from your art? I thought this was quite a good question, and to be really honest, I'm sort of not reluctant, but I'm a little bit aware of answering this question because it's finance related, and yeah, I don't, it's a very personal thing. But I know how interested I was when I was just starting out making art and trying to start my own art business. I know how interested I would be to hear this question. So I'm going to tell you guys, not that I've got anything to hide. So I sell my paintings on Etsy. I take on commissions. I have a YouTube channel, which obviously you get paid for advertising. Occasionally I do sponsorships on my YouTube channel, which I'm sure you guys are aware if you've seen a lot of my stuff. I know that there's a lot of disagreement about sponsorships, but personally I think if it means that you can keep creating content that people love, then why not? I think that's it. I love this this comment. It says, we all know you paint and the stuff you use and etc. I want to know is what your favourite TV show and movie is. Random, but I want to get to know you more. Oh, that's really sweet, thank you. Oh, my favourite TV show. In general, we don't really watch a lot of telly. If I have a bit of spare time, I'll probably just put some YouTube videos on and have a bath, or just come into the studio and listen to some podcasts and things like that. The younger self of me is also a major fan of Pretty Little Liars. My favourite movie. I feel like I have to say my favourite film is Aladdin. For like my 6-year-old self, you know? I don't really know what my favourite film is now. Do you have days where you just don't feel inspired to paint? How do you overcome days like that? I definitely have days like that. Sometimes I will force myself to try and paint, but usually it just doesn't end up right, and for some reason when you're in that mode, just sometimes it's better just to leave it for that day and to not force it, because it might just be you're feeling a little unwell, you're lacking energy, something like that. So I think most of all you need to look after yourself and not to push yourself too hard. So if you're feeling like you don't want to paint, then just don't paint for a bit. You know, there's no point forcing it, unless of course it's your job and it's your work and you want it to be a career, then you have to force yourself. But if it's just a hobby, then just get outside, see a bit of nature, and don't put too much pressure on yourself. How much time do you spend in your studio? Pretty much all day, every day, nearly. And like, that's kind of embarrassing to say because I sound like a bit of a loser, but it's my job, so you know, it's just like going to work for me. What are some things that you haven't explored a lot yet, like different mediums or things you haven't tried to paint but would like to try? So I used to paint a lot of portraits, and I really love portraits. I love looking at portraits, you know. Portrait galleries are my favourite galleries to go to. So I would really like to explore portraits a little bit more in the future. Also, I love charcoal, and I used to draw a lot with charcoal, and I haven't really done that much these days. So I think using more charcoal is something that I'm really excited to do. Do you plan your paintings beforehand or just paint as you go? I wouldn't say plan, but usually sometimes I'll just be like, oh, I've got an idea, and then I'll just get to the studio as quick as I can and just start the idea straight away. Like, I don't usually like get a sketchbook and plan things out, or sometimes with my abstracts I've painted them on little ones just to check that I like the composition more. Obviously with abstracts you have no idea of how it's going to pan out, but yeah, I don't really plan, to be honest. What would you tell a young person who wants to have a career as an artist? The thing that I would say is it's going to be really tough, and realistically you do have to treat it as though it's a job. So you have to show up every day on time, you have to put in your all as if you have a boss watching your every move. You have to really give it everything you've got, otherwise it's just not going to work. You also have to be smart about stuff, so you know, you're going to have to do marketing, you're going to have to do a website, you're going to have to do accounts and all that nitty-gritty stuff that artists don't generally enjoy. So be aware of the different things involved like that and just go for it. And really, it is sensible that you find a way of funding yourself until it gets to the point where you want it. Realistically, these things take years, and it's no good just saying, oh, I'm going to be an artist as a job and expect to get a paycheck every month. It's going to take years to build up. So it's important that you have a way to earn money to live before you take the plunge of just living off your art, and that way it takes the pressure off, and also you can make sure that you're going down the right direction for you, instead of, like we said earlier, being forced down a route out of like desperation because you need to afford your rent, that sort of thing. I found large canvases intimidating. How do you approach painting something really big? It's interesting for me because I think I'm the other way around. When I see a big giant canvas, all I want to do is scribble on it. It's like it's torture for me to sit and watch it just being white. I can't stand it. That's why usually I just scribble, paint on the first layer. I'm quite haphazard about stuff. For me, when I see a little canvas, I'm like, oh, how do I approach that? So I suppose for me it's just more of a natural thing, but I would say just not being scared of it, and the thing what takes that fear away is the more you do it. So the more you'll paint on big canvases, like the less fear that you'll feel over something so big. How do you stay motivated as a self-employed artist, and do you have any tips to stay on track with your plans and procrastination? I don't know, I think as a person I am quite like driven, I would probably say. So for me it's like more difficult not to work than it is to work. I don't know why I'm like that. It sounds like a dream, but actually it's really frustrating because it's Sunday night when other people are relaxing. I'm still in the studio, really tired, sometimes I just don't sleep and get up and paint. Obviously I do have those days where you just think, oh, you know what, today I just can't. And that's what the great thing is about being a self-employed artist, that if you can afford it at the time, then you can just say, you know what, I'm having a day off, I need a bit of breathing space just to clarify my mind, and if you can do it, why not? How long until you feel like your art started getting noticed? It's a very gradual thing for me. Like, it was never like I woke up one day and I was like, wow, I've got all these followers and oh, I've just sold like 10 paintings. It was very, very gradual. If it's all over the place, it's a bit like, oh, what's happening there? But you know that if it's just generally increasing slowly, then it will just carry on doing that. So then you know that it will work out in the end. What age did you start, and how do you know you wanted to keep painting? I've always loved art, really always loved art. At school, I wasn't so great at art, and I think that was because I didn't spend enough time doing it. When you've got like math, science and English homework to do, they are like the most important thing. So you don't get a lot of time really when you're at school to do art. I think when I was about 23 years old, then I was like, right, I'm really going to focus on painting and this is what I want to do. If you really want it, then you just got to go for it. Do you have a list of artists that you find really inspiring, and which artists do you most admire? I'm going to save this one because I've got a video planned very soon all about my favourite artists and who I really admire and why, so make sure you stay tuned for that video coming up. Do you ever make a painting and then decide you don't like it, so you paint over it? All the time. And what kind of camera do you use for filming? This is a Nikon D5200, yeah, D5200 a Nikon, but you can just use your phone, it's all fine. I'm really sorry about the change in light, guys. The sun keeps coming out, and with it being wintertime, the sun just comes on the back of the studio all day, so it's really difficult to film at this time of year. What is better, plastic or metal palette knives? I've only ever used metal palette knives, and I love metal because you can just use them forever, because even when they're full of paint you can just scrape it off with a metal scraper. This is a really good question. It's by Nicolette, and she said, I'm currently doing art GCSE and I feel like everyone is so much better than me. I just keep comparing my work to everybody else's, and I feel like this year I'm just failing to produce the same high standard of work I've always done before. Any tips on what I should do and how I can stay motivated? When I was doing my art GCSE, I felt exactly the same. Enjoy life, enjoy being with your family, your friends, and don't stress about having a career, and as long as you get the best grades you can for math, science, English, that will set you up. And honestly, don't worry about art GCSE. Unless you want to go on to university. If you want to go on to university, then obviously that's another matter. And if you really do want to focus on your artwork the most, then relax and put more time into it. And these things do take a heck of a lot of time, and the number one thing I would say is to stop comparing yourself. Comparing yourself to other people is like the worst thing, because while you're comparing yourself to that person across the room and you're looking at their artwork and you're thinking, that's amazing, like, how is she doing that? And then you look at yours and you feel rubbish about it. I actually feel sad. I'm feeling sad about this imaginary thing. As much as you're feeling like that, that person over there is sat looking at your painting and thinking, oh, how is she doing that? I wish that was mine. So really comparing yourself to people is like, everybody does it and it's like an intermingled web. Please try and don't compare yourself to other people. We're all completely different, and literally comparing yourself with other people can never bring a positive thing. Just compare your own work to what your own work was before, and maybe do some more research on drawing and that sort of thing. What advice would you give to a new artist about to sell their first art piece? I'm conflicted on pricing and even selling them, since most of my work so far has been experimental pieces. I think pricing is a really difficult thing for a lot of artists. Some of my paintings around me, I think if I get less than this amount, I'd rather just keep it. So if I feel like that, then I'll put the prices up until you think, oh yeah, I'm happy to let that go for that price. So it's a very personal thing, but ask yourself, if I got this much for it, would I be happy with that, or would I rather keep it? And I think that for me is like the best way of deciding how much a piece is going to be. How do you go about finding your own style and balancing inspiration with copying other artists? I think a great way to draw inspiration from other artists is, instead of finding artists that your work is similar to and comparing that, compare your work to someone's art that is completely different to yours. So say if one of my abstracts, say if I compared that with maybe a realistic painting or a portrait, and then you can take ideas with the brush strokes, you can take ideas with the colours, and then you can apply it to your work. Obviously it won't look the same because it's a completely different medium. Where did you get your painting apron from? So I just got my painting apron from a local art shop, and it's just a cotton apron. I'm sure there'll be a few ones available from Amazon or something. Do you have any tips and tricks about building an invested community about your art on Instagram or Facebook? I find mine has grown so slowly. Do you think YouTube has helped your audience connect with you better? I definitely feel like YouTube is better for connecting with your followers, because I feel like people really get a sense of who I am rather than just a photograph, which doesn't really convey feelings or your personality and things like that. Facebook I've never really gotten with. I've never liked Facebook, even just as like a social platform. I just find it really visually boring. And Instagram I think grew quickly for me once I've got a YouTube channel. It just helps you get found a bit more, I think. Doing YouTube is almost like another job in itself. My YouTube is a part-time job, and then my Etsy shop and painting is a part-time job. So if you don't have like a lot of time, then YouTube is definitely not the answer. It's one of those things that happens very organically and naturally and can't be forced. But yeah, I definitely feel like YouTube has helped people get the sense of my personality and who I am. Do you think about marketing before starting a new artwork, like what will be selling successfully? Definitely not, and I would suggest everybody not to do that, because you'll feel like you're creating somebody else's dream. Instead, try and focus on what gets you excited and paint that, and if it sells, it sells, if it doesn't, it doesn't. So that's it for today's quickfire Q&A. I hope that you guys really enjoyed that, and I really hope I answered your question if you're watching this. Thank you so much guys for all your amazing support, and I love you all. Goodbye!